Alright guys, so today we're going to be talking about circle equations, and the equation for a circle is x minus h squared and y minus k squared, and that equals r. So your center of your circle is at hk, and the radius is, the square root of r. Okay, so we're not going to start on number 1 because it's a little bit more complicated, and so is number 3. So we're going to come back to those. Let's look at number 7. So number 7, it gives us our center and it gives us our radius. So we're going to write the center, or the equation. So this is our x value and our y value, and the formula is subtract. See? Subtract. So that means when we plug it into the formula, we should have opposite. So our center is x plus 16 squared and y plus 10 squared, which equals our radius of 3. Now here's the thing though. This is just the radius, already square rooted. So you have to square the radius when you put it into the equation, so this should be 9. Okay, and then like on number 9, it's the same idea. So it's x minus 7 squared. This is your x value and your y value. And y plus 14 squared. And then if I want to square the square root of 19, my square and my square root cancel, so that gives me 19. Okay, so that's kind of what we're going for. The same thing on number 11. So we're just going to keep going. We'll go back to the beginning because they're actually harder at the beginning. Okay, so then you have x minus 16, because it's the opposite, squared, and y minus 2 squared. Square your radius, and that is 4. So there's the equation. Now, I've given you the equation, and I want you to identify the center and the radius. So the center is opposite, -1. Make sure you put your x value first. And then the opposite of -6 is +6. And that's your center. And then your radius is this guy squared. So 9 squared is 81. Okay, so then, oh, sorry, not squared, square rooted. So it's the square root of 9, which is 3. And we would be graphing these, so we can't have a -3, so we throw that guy out. Okay, now we get to the more complicated ones, 15, 17, and the front side. So now let's go back to the front side, and we're going to look at number 3. So on number 3, to write my center is the opposite of -2, so +2. And then I don't have a y value, so it's a 0. The square root of 16 is 4. So if I were to graph that, my center is at 2, 0. And my radius is 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then, yeah, get the idea. Draw your circle around it. Okay, now here, I can't just look at this guy and write my center and my radius, because this is not in this form. So we have to change this to match this. So what you're going to do is you're going to get all of your y's and x's together. The only thing we want on the opposite side is a plain number, okay? You want them all to be positive. So my x squared over here is positive, so I'm going to move my y squared and my 4x and then my y, and I'm going to move my 4 back over, okay? So I've got x squared. The next thing I want is my 4x. I'm going to move that over, so add 4x. Then I'm going to move over my y squared, and I'm going to add 6y. I'm going to move this 4 over onto the other side, so I just rearranged all my stuff. Okay, everything went to the left except for that -4. So basically, because the formula is squared, you basically have to factor, but you want it to be a perfect square. So the easiest thing to do is to use the idea of completing the squares. So remember, in completing the squares, we take our b value, because we're going to do this for 2 of them. We're going to do this for our x's and our y's, because they are each going to be separate factors. So we take our 4, our b term, and we're going to divide that in 2, and then square that answer. So 4 divided by 2 is 2 squared, and 2 squared is 4. We're not going to write that down. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing for our y. We're going to use the 6y as our b term, so 6 divided by 2, and then we're going to square that. 6 divided by 2 is 3 squared. Okay, so I'm not sure if you remember how to complete the square, but basically these x's turn into x plus 2, it's whatever the simplified form is, squared. And the y's turn into whatever your completed the square was going to be as well. So that would be y plus 3 squared. And then over on the right-hand side, we have our minus 4 still. And then since we technically added 2 squared onto the left to make this factored term, we have to add 2 squared, which is 4 on the right, so that we balance our equations. And the same thing happens over here. We added 3 squared, which was 9 on this side, so we technically have to add it over on the other side too. So we're almost done. We have x plus 2 squared plus y plus 3 squared. Negative 4 plus 4, it goes away, so now we have 9. Okay, so our center is at negative 2, negative 3, because that's our x and our y, and our radius is the square root of 9, which is 3. And then we can draw our picture. Okay, so we have our center at negative 2, negative 3. Our radius is 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. There is our circle. Okay, so we're going to do it again. Thank you. Okay, we're going to look at number 5. It's the same idea there. Okay, so on number 5, we want to get everything onto the left-hand side. Okay, and I want to get everything in order. So I'm going to move this guy and this guy over to the left. So I want my x's to go first because the x's go first in the formula. So x squared minus 4x, and then I have y squared and 4y, and I'm going to leave that 15 over there. So now we're completing the square. So basically we're figuring out what to add to each side to make this a perfect square factor and this a perfect square factor as well. So I'm skipping the step in between. I'll show you what that step is this time. Okay, so the first thing we have to do is take our b term, and we're going to cut that in half and then square that. Negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2 squared. The same thing with our b term on our y's. Take that 4, cut it in half, and then square that. Okay, so basically over here, I'm changing this to be x squared minus 4x plus negative 2 squared, and y squared plus 4y plus 2 squared. So I added these two new numbers. I added 2 squared on the left, which is positive 4, and 2 squared on the left, which makes sure that I add that much on the right as well. Okay, so if I were to factor this, if I big X'd that guy right there, then you end up with x minus 2 squared, and we'll have y 2 squared equals 15 and 4 and 4, that makes 23. So my center is at negative 2, 2, and my radius is the square root of 23, which is like 4.7, 4.8, something like that. So negative 2, 2. Yeah, that's your x. Oh, wait. Positive 2, negative 2. Okay, my bad. 2, negative 2. Opposite signs. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, almost 5. 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 Here's my circle. Ugh, that's really bad. Okay, go back to 15. So 15, basically we're doing the same thing here. We're going to get all of these guys onto the left, and this one's kind of beastly. And I want to move my 501 onto the right and keep that as the only thing over there. And I'm going to put it in order. So I've got 2x squared, and then I want to move my other x term, plus 42x, then my y goes next, plus 2y squared, and then plus 50y equals negative 501. So just rearranging. Now I have leading coefficients, and completing the square and leading coefficients are not friends, so we're going to get rid of my leading coefficients by dividing everything by 2. So that will give me x squared and 21x and y squared and 25y equals, well, that guy. If you remember from completing the square, we like to leave these guys as fractions. We do the same thing. 21 divided by 2 squared is going to be that. We don't want a decimal. And so the first, my x's turn into x and 21 seconds squared, and my y's turn into y and 25 seconds squared. And then over here on this side, I have negative 501 over 2, and then I have to square these. So 21 squared is going to be, 441, and 2 squared is, and then 25 squared is 625, and 2 squared is 4. Now if I wanted to, which I should, I need to get this guy to have a common denominator, so I want him, so I just need to multiply the top and the bottom by 2, and that gives me negative 102 over 2. You could just add these in your calculator if you wanted to. It'll still work. You don't have to change this to have a common denominator. Oh, over 4. Sorry. My bad. But you can. And then you can just add all of the tops. And when you add all of these tops together, negative 1,002, 441, and 625, you get 64 fourths. And that is really 16. So we've got 16 over here, which is a perfect square, which works out really nice with our circle formula. And we're going to keep this junk, so x plus 21 over 2 squared, and y plus 25 over 2 squared. So my center is at negative 21 seconds and negative 25 seconds for. So I get it, lots of work, but it's all things that you've done before with completing the square. You should be able to do this as well now. Okay, 17. We're going to do this one. It's not as beastly, but the same idea. Everything goes on the left except for the 112 is going to go on the right because that is essentially our radius. And I'm going to rearrange them in order because it works out easiest. And the whole reason I'm moving them to the left is because this y squared is already positive and I need this x squared to be positive as well. Leading coefficients have to be positive 1 when you complete the square. So we have x squared minus 22x plus y squared minus 8y equals negative 112. Again, just rearranging. Then take your b's. You are going to divide them by 2 and square. So negative 22 divided by 2 is negative 11 squared. And then negative 8 divided by 2 is negative 4 squared. Okay, so now we write our factors. We've got x minus 11 squared and y minus 4 squared. And then we added, because negative 11 squared is positive 121, so we added 121 to the side. It just doesn't quite look like that. And then negative 14 squared is positive 16. So now combine this business. We have x minus 11 squared and y minus 4 squared equals, all of this junk combined is 25. So it's really nice. Our center is at 11, 4, and our radius is at the square root of 25, which is 5. Okay, let me know if you have any questions. Complete the square, get the equation, write your center and your radius. Have a great day. Bye!